Thank you for joining our Small Business Bootcamp for today for this Tuesday, August 6th. I'm Robert Theobald. I'm the Small Business Ombudsman and Vice President of Small Business Services at the Arizona Commerce Authority, and we're glad to have you here with us. One of the things we like to do at the beginning of these webinars is ask everybody to post in the chat where you are tuning in from. We like to see where everybody is from throughout Arizona and sometimes beyond. So again, post up in the chat where you're tuned in from. I see Tucson, Cayenta, Prescott Valley, Scottsdale, more Tucson, Yuma County, Bisbee, all right. Currently in Brooklyn, all right. Rita Ranch, Chandler via NYC, Tempe, Wisconsin, Phoenix, Gilbert. All right, Tucson, Laveen, Phoenix, Tempe, Phoenix. All right, we got a great group, Wilcox. All right. Hey, Wilcox, congratulations on your softball team. Little League softball making it to the Little League World Series. Great job to the girls there. You got Queen Creek. Excellent. Lake Powell. And then we have an AI assistant popping in. All right. Well, thank you for posting up where you're tuning in from. We're excited to have everybody with us. If you're new to the boot camp and you haven't been on before, the Small Business Boot Camp is made possible through our community partners. We could not do these webinars without them, their time, their effort, and most importantly, their expertise. All of our community partners like to give back of their time and their expertise to help small businesses grow, and you can take advantage of that. Also, for those that are new to the boot camp, the Small Business Boot Camp is designed to help small businesses prepare, plan, and grow. And we do that through a number of different ways. First is our webinar that we host every Tuesday morning, 9 a.m. We've been doing it on Tuesdays at 9 a.m. for a few years now, and goes very well. But we also do other programs such as in-person workshops, virtual workshops, lunch and learns, and other events to help support small businesses. So the boot camp is a great resource. One of the best parts about the boot camp is that we record all of our sessions. So if you can't make it on a Tuesday morning, or we have a virtual lunch and learn and you can't make it, we record all of our virtual sessions and post them in our content library. So there's no cost to access that. You just go to our website. You can go to the Small Business Bootcamp webpage, scroll to the bottom, and you'll find our content library. It'll say previous webinars. Click on that, and you can see all of the 350 plus webinars that are in there. You can review the recording. You can download the slide deck and other materials that might be available depending on what the presenters share with us. So it's a great tool, great resource available to everyone. The ACA also has a number of other programs, to help support small businesses. You can find these and many more at azcommerce.com/programs. Our goal is to help small businesses participate in growing the Arizona economy. So these help support that. Also, one of our key tools is the small business checklist. So if you scan this QR code on the screen, it will take you to our checklist page. And the small business checklist is an online interactive tool or resource that can help guide entrepreneurs to the commonly requested licensing, registration, and compliance requirements at the local, state, and federal levels. You can also find a lot of other information related to your industry or your city or your profession in the checklist. It has information if you're looking to hire people on what you need to do, and also down to helping identify the requirements for different business structures. So there's a ton of information that you can find in the checklist. Also on that page, you'll find Sally, our state and local licensing information virtual assistant, and you can test out Sally And Sally has not quite all the detailed information, but has a ton of information at a little bit quicker way to get to it, more easier way and sometimes. So see if Sally has the information that you need, and then provide feedback. If you do use Sally, we look forward to seeing your feedback on if you're able to find the information you're looking for or not, so we can help Sally be the best virtual assistant possible. So with that, we're going to do some small business updates. First, we have a small business workshop next week. It's in person only on Wednesday, August 14th. It is in partnership with the Phoenix Business Journal, Wells Fargo, and Blue Cross Blue Shield of Arizona. And then SCORE is doing a country nationwide pitch competition for Arizona businesses. There's a virtual component so you can apply, but there are, I think, 5 different areas that have in-person pitches as well. So we'll post some information on that. And the first place winner of that nationwide pitch competition is an award of $20,000. And then we want to announce one of our partners through the State Small Business Credit Initiative Technical Assistance Program is Prestamo CDFI. And through that program, they will be doing a number of workshops around the state, help businesses understand the funding process. It's called Funding Your Dreams Workshop. There's no cost to attend it. We're going to post a link to their event so you can find one that will be near you. Again, we encourage you to attend. You can get connected with the Prestamo's team. There's no cost technical assistance. They can also link you up with other local partners in those areas if needed. So it's a great program. Check it out as they get one near you. So we're going to go ahead and jump in and launch a poll right now. Faith, if you can launch that poll. We just like to see what size businesses everyone has that are here participating. So we have solopreneur, 2 to 10 employees, 11 to 20, 20 to 50, and 51 plus. We like to do this every so often to make sure our presenters get the right information on the business size they're looking at. So we appreciate everybody posting up. I see we've got 41 of the 55 attendees posted. So again, if you're just thinking of starting a business, go ahead and select I'm a solopreneur. But if you are in business, select the one that corresponds. All right, so we're going to go ahead and end the poll. Share the result. So we have almost half the businesses are 2 to 10 employees, and we have quite a few that are over 51 employees. That's exciting. So, but more than half are in the under 20 employee range. But we want to thank all of you for being here and participating in that poll. So thank you for that. So let's jump into the upcoming sessions that we have. We've got a great lineup coming up for you. We've actually got most of the rest of the year scheduled out with some amazing presenters. But next week is going to be a really good one if you are looking to do any type of video with your marketing. We have our expert Taylor Wellman. She's been on with us before. She's a financial potion, and she does videos, events. She teaches video stuff. She does a great job. Her presentations are excellent. So I encourage everybody to be part of that. And then on August 20th, we have a digital marketing Q&A with one of our experts. Has been on before, Cac Varley. He's going to do some questions. So if you're going to participate in that session, you can shoot us an email or two of what question you might have that we can ask him, and we'll share those with them ahead of time so he can be prepared. But we're going to do some live Q&A with our participants in that as well. And then the week after that, we've got Mitch Goodwin, who's going to come in and talk about the entrepreneurial process and how to manage the chaos that everybody faces. And so we're excited about those sessions. So Take a look at them. Hopefully you can make them. Again, those are all the Tuesday morning sessions. But with that, we're going to jump into today's session. And we've got one of our returning presenters, Aurelia Gaylord, has been with us multiple times in the past, talking about project management and leadership. And then we have Roxanne Montoya as well with us. And we are excited to have them with us today. So I'm going to stop talking, stop sharing my screen, and there will be some interaction. So we ask that we use the chat for the interaction, and we want you to have questions. And so ask those questions in the Q&A box at the bottom of your screen, this little box with a question mark in it. If you click on that, you can ask your question, and that way they don't get lost in amongst the chatter in the chat. So with that, Roxanne and Aurelia, it's your time to present.
Awesome. Can I go ahead and share my presentation?
Yep.
There you go. Hi, everyone. Thank you so much. I wanted to very quickly give a little synopsis of what we're going to do today, and then allow the wonderful Aurelia Gaylord to introduce herself, and I'll introduce myself as well. But today we're here to talk about, it's sort of a catchword that you've been hearing a lot lately, high impact leadership. And in this case, we're going to talk about how it affects project management, or how it's related to project management. And as small business owners, whether your company is in the 1 to 10 category, or whether it's in the 250 or more category, the good thing about being a business owner, I always found when I first started my business, what drove me was the idea that I could be the kind of leader that I wish I had when I was young, or even throughout any of my career opportunities. So I wish that, I hope that your takeaway from this is going to be fundamentals that you can apply and start to use in your leadership strategies to grow your business. So with that in mind, I'm going to, not sure how to hit next on this. I'm going to let Miss Aurelia Gaylord introduce herself.
Okay. Well, thank you everyone for joining. Thank you, ACA, for having me back and presenting on a topic. I love project management. I am a certified project management. I've been doing project management for over 15 years, whether it's in corporate, and now I'm doing it on my own business. And, I really want people to succeed in doing projects. Even the smallest projects that we have, I want you to succeed. Think about, like, I went to Egypt last year, right? That is a project in and of itself, right? Because I had to, determine, like, what flight I needed to do, the money I was going to bring, how I was going to get from the airport to the hotel to the airport. All of that is a project. We may not think about it, but it's a project. And if something goes wrong, I'm either stuck in England, or I may get stuck in Egypt, right? So again, I love talking about project management. This is something a little bit different. I'm going to actually, talk about leadership and how that kind of impacts project management. And I'm just glad to be here, and I'm glad that you guys are here as well.
And I am Roxanne Montoya. I am the Chief Strategist at Avum Systems. And as Chief Strategist, I get to work with a lot of leaders just like yourselves in multiple size companies and in multiple paths as they're going into their entrepreneurship journey. I get to work with former athletes, many of them whom they're opening up their own nonprofits. And so I get to use the background that I've developed over the years to help companies, as I say, start, grow, or develop. So I'm excited to be here. All right, so what is high impact leadership? Here, in the way it affects project management, we're going to talk about how to combine the ideas of high impact leadership for effective project management. And as Aurelia said, pretty much everything we do is a small project. It could be a tiny project or a big project. So whether we're creating something for our own business or whether you are doing something for a client that's, paying you to get this project done, it's the same process. And how you start it is going to determine how it's going to move forward and whether or not it's going to be successful. And so some of the ways that leadership and project management sort of collide, you've got effective project managers that exhibit qualities and vision for your company, vision for the project. You've got the idea of strategic alignment, which is a word I hear we have to align on this when I work with tech companies a lot. But basically what that means is that the leaders are ensuring that projects are aligned with the organization's values. And they, as the leaders of the project, need to have their own set of values prepared for how to move forward with the project. And then again, in the way this kind of leadership affects project management is change management. So both leaders and project management, leadership and project management involves managing change effectively. And I think that that's where we all struggle. Every day, I have these concepts that I use when I work with leaders. Because again, sometimes I'm starting with somebody at the beginning of their entrepreneurial journey. Sometimes I'm working with someone who's ready to open their, 10th restaurant or whatever it is. So change is a constant. And if I don't work on my basic level of understanding where people might be when they're starting versus where people might be when they reach a certain level of success, I might not be effective in helping each one of them get what they need to move forward, to grow, to develop, right? So every day we have to work at it, and every day we have to try and learn something new if possible, which is, for me, being an educator, the exciting part. So a lot of this is going to be sort of a high level overview. So as we're talking about these concepts, please feel free to ask questions. And Faith, if you just want to blurt them out, or you can wait until the end, whichever one you prefer is certainly fine. But I love hearing personal stories. It helps me work with people in general. It helps me advise people sometimes. Hearing somebody's story that stays with me often will help me advise other people down the road. But we're going to start with maybe the things you don't want to do as you're building your company, as you're becoming the leader of this company. So I jokingly say you might be a micromanager and you might be a micromanager if you have ever used the phrase or thought the phrase, micromanagement is management. I have heard people say this, and I have known people who believe it with all their heart. And I don't know what a micromanager looks like to you, but in recent years, what I've noticed a micromanager does is, in an effort to increase productivity, what they're doing is sort of making people feel a little bit demoralized. And when you feel a little bit demoralized, you don't have the energy to give because this person is creating an atmosphere that maybe isn't beneficial to the work at hand. And then if you are constantly focused on those things that you think are producing and aren't working for you, then you're going to end up with the opposite, which is poor productivity. And so micromanagement can lead to inefficiencies. And so team members spend time reporting on minor details rather than focusing on actual details. And I notice a lot of this when I work with clients and I sit in on their morning meetings or on their weekly meetings. And what ends up happening is that no one's listening to each other. Because this department indirectly may affect this department, but they don't work together hand in hand. But everyone wants everyone there just to show how many people are in the company and how many people are working toward the same goal, but they're not. In other words, there's an overarching goal, and then there's smaller goals. And when you're forcing people to report on every last task, they don't have time to work on the actual task. And I've seen this, especially in the technology industry, where you have people that are so focused on getting the reports for those meetings that they don't let people do the work. And when I talk to the employees, I hear this: how am I supposed to do my work when all I'm worried about is this next meeting? So you're being asked to join 20 meetings a day and not allowed to do your work. And then they get mad at you when the work's not done. So that's the employee's perspective. So as a manager, you want to walk in and not have that happen. You want there to be a more effective, a more efficient way of making sure people are productive. When they're productive, it shows that they're growing. When they're productive, it shows that there's good communication. And when they're productive, the workplace stress is minimal. Some types of businesses, some types of industries lend themselves more to stress than others, right? I give you again a lot of the tech industries. A lot of them have the 24-hour machine. They're constantly working. They have the shift work, right? So you have people at every level working 24 hours a day, not so different teams working 24/7 to meet the demands of their contractor. This is a lot. And if it's a lot for you as the manager, if this is your business, you get to set the rules. If it's the result of the contractor that you're working for, it's your job to act as a liaison between that, what the requirements are, and your employees. And if you're not acting as that liaison on behalf of both providing the customer with what they need, but giving your employees what they need, you're not going to have those employees for very long, or they're not going to be as effective as they should be. So micromanagement is management. If you use that as a general rule, you are a micromanager, and it might be a good time to start thinking about things a little differently. So we're going to share some high-level ideas, and let's hope that some of these can resonate with wherever you are in your own business. All right, so a good leader, again, it's not about the leader, right? They know it's not about being liked. They know it's not about anything other than being respected. You don't have to like someone to respect them. And when you're a leader, you know that it isn't about you. I have often heard leaders who get promoted that they'll say things like this: all right, now it's time to build my kingdom. Are they making it about the people that they're in charge of, or are they making it about themselves, right? And so the importance of effective communication is step number one in high impact leadership. You have to know how to communicate. And you're here right now learning how to lead. And so you want to give that exact energy into learning how to communicate. Any relationship takes communication. If you have a child, if you've ever had a significant other, if you've ever had a business partner that you work with a lot, like I do with Cerelia, you have to learn how to communicate. If you don't know how to communicate, there is going to be misunderstandings. You're going to have, again, that decreased morale, which produces inefficiencies. And so learning how to communicate effectively and practicing how to communicate effectively is one of the most important things that you can do. And it's not about learning how to talk to people. It's not about saying the right things. It is literally about learning how to listen, and then taking what you've heard and making sure that you understand what that person is saying, making sure that you don't take things personally, making sure that you're creating a space to where if someone makes a mistake, they can come to you and tell you that the mistake has been made, and you can work on a solution together. That's your job. You're the leader. They should be able to go to you. And again, if you've been a parent, how would you feel if your child couldn't come to you and talk to you about anything going on in their lives? Again, an employee is not your child. That's not what we're saying. But we are saying that a relationship takes work, a relationship takes communication, and a relationship takes, it's give and take. So the importance of effective communication is one of the things I cannot stress enough. I've been an educator, I've been a mom, I've been a wife, I've been a friend, I've been a business partner. So I want to make sure that this isn't something that's just going to go away with the next slide. Effective communication is probably the key to being a good leader. So. All right, then. So developing better outcomes and a more positive work environment. How do we do that? So now we know what not to do through micromanagement. Here's what we should be doing. Active listening, as we said, communication is a really important thing. And then this thing that everybody's been talking about, You may have heard about it recently, but it's obviously been around forever, and it's referred to as emotional intelligence. And what that means is that you, what is the saying? Seek to understand, not to speak, or listen to understand and not to speak. So when you're constantly waiting for your chance to talk, you're not really listening to what's going on with the person and with the situation at hand and how they're feeling and how maybe, and again, people might think I am a business owner. I'm not a counselor. And that is where you're wrong. As a leader, you're a little bit of everything, especially when it's your company. Like I said at the very beginning, when I started my own company, it was because I didn't want to go back to a 9 to 5. And the one thing I thought that I could do better than anyone was become the boss I always wanted. And when I work with my contractors and with the people I work with on a weekly basis, a couple of them are related, but still, I know they respect me. And it's not about, like I said, it's not about being liked. It is about being respected. But being respected doesn't mean being feared. So when you're working toward having this active listening and emotional intelligence, you want to make sure that you're able to build the relationships and not take things personally and give them, your employees, the opportunity to come to you to talk about anything. And that's, again, goes back to communication. So active listening, emotional intelligence. Next, we're going to talk about establishing trust and maintaining professionalism, because again, as I said before, it's a relationship. So the elements of a relationship are going to be there, but this is still employee-employer relations, even for those that work for me that are related. We have, so that's, we'll talk business first and then, hey, how's the baby, right? But when we do that, the professionalism can't waver, because that is how you can sometimes lose respect. So establishing trust is really important to establishing that respect, and maintaining professionalism sets the tone. So when we talk about high impact leaders, they empower their team members. They delegate tasks appropriately. And that right there, depending on how big your company is going to be huge. I always, for some reason, think it's odd when people ask for, when they're looking for programmers and they ask for people to do full stack. And for those of you who don't know, we'll just say that there's front end work, back end work in programming, and full stack means that you're going to do both. And often the salaries that they are paying the full stack people don't reflect the fact that they're doing two jobs. And so for me, that is leading to the next one. You're setting people up for failure. When you aren't giving them the resources that they need to do their job effectively, when they're not being compensated fairly, you are setting yourself, first of all, and your team up for failure. Because if you're working on a project that requires you to report to your contractor that's paying for you, that's paying for your employees for this particular project, you need to make sure that every aspect of what you've told this client that you can do is working in an efficient manner. So when I work with companies to strategize, when I work with companies to come up with, because every time you have a project, you have to do your own plan for this project. And when I work with companies that, to help them set a plan for whatever it is they're trying to do within their business, it becomes real clear to me sometimes that they're not setting the people that they've hired for this particular contract, that they're not setting them up for success. And sometimes it's because they're trying to save money, and sometimes it's because they didn't think of certain things, and so now they're trying to restructure stuff. But sometimes if you've done a great job at communicating and building those relationships, your employees will step up when it's required, right? They'll already know, because you have built a way for them to succeed. You have built a way for them to come to an aid when there's a hiccup, when there's a problem, when there's something that needs to be managed by all hands on deck without you having to force all hands on deck. So setting people up for success, as long as you're trying your best constantly, because again, this is something you work on daily. It's your company. If you're constantly making sure that you're setting up your team for success, when there is a fire to put out, when there is a problem, they're going to be able to rise to the occasion, as will you, because you're going to have strategies in place. You're going to have plans in place to make sure that everything is executed as smoothly as possible. And so the last item here on how you want to be able to start developing your personal leadership style within the confines of high impact leadership is, being able to let people know that you can so you can look confident without actually being confident. I have a lot of nervous tics. I'm used to working with kids for 20 years, even though I haven't done it for 20 years. For 20 years I did, or for 17 years I did. And so it is very odd for me to sit still. So I don't always look confident. The minute I start talking to people, especially business leaders whose companies, far exceed the size of mine, then they realize that, oh, okay, it's not about looking confident. It's actually about being confident in your skills. So when you're confident in your skill set and you are a credible human being, then people will recognize that and they will appreciate that and they will be able to confide and know that you are going to set the best strategies, the best approaches, the best paths for yourself, for your company, and for them as well. So what do high impact leaders focus on? So the takeaways, you're going to focus on your vision and your strategy for your business because you want to make sure that you have this clear and compelling vision for your future, for that project, for anything moving forward. So again, when you have a strategy, that's like the overarching thing. And then you have these little plans in between that help you get to that goal, that finish line, and then you start the process over again. It's a business. You have to do this all the time. And then you want to make sure there's empowerment and communication. So you're providing your team with everything they need to succeed, including the ability to come to you when something's not right, when something's gone wrong. You're going to focus on learning to communicate. And again, it doesn't mean that you're walking in with this approach of, hey, I'm the boss, this is how it's going to go, or the overly friendly approach, because it's not about being liked, it's about being respected. And when they know that they can trust you and that they can communicate with you, then they know that you're someone that they can have confidence in to lead the way, right? And then the last one is to be adaptable. So you want to make sure that as a leader, you can be flexible. Some new technology comes around, let's learn how we can use it. Some new ideas from your employees or wherever come around, let's see how we can incorporate them. And again, if you are fully aware of what your vision is, your mission, right, for your business or for the project, then being able to incorporate some of these ideas that other people can come up with is going to be really easy. It'll literally be like just take when you're shuffling cards, it'll just be part of the shuffle. Like you'll be able to work it in because you've already set up a method, a process for taking in that information and making those changes. So that is my time, and I'm going to turn things over to Cerilia, who's going to focus on project management.
Okay, thanks, Roxanne, for that overview in leadership. And I'm going to talk to you about leadership and management skills as it relates to project management, actually being a project manager and managing a project. I had a person who came to me and she was just starting out her project management career. And she came with a question. She said, Saria, what's more important, leadership skills and management skills? And I said, both. You need both management and leadership skills to be successful leading a project, okay? And then what I'm going to do is kind of show you and give you some examples of certain things that are done in projects that are leadership skills, and then some things that are actually management skills. So next slide, please. Okay, so to be an effective project manager, you need leadership skills. So let me go into detail on why you need leadership skills. So here's some of the things on a project when you start getting into, putting a project together in that very foundational kind of thing that you're doing on a project. This is where your leadership skills come into play, okay? I like to call these the foundation of the project. And if you don't understand the foundation of a project, then your leadership skills are not going to be able to help you get through. Okay, so some of the things is understanding the project why. Why do you need to understand the why in the project? You need to understand, the benefits. Does it link up to the strategic goals as Roxanne had talked about? What is this going to do to the company? What's the outcomes? It's going to set them up for a future success. So understanding the project why is very important. Understand the goals. What are the goals of this project? What are we doing here? Is the goals for a certain project or for a certain, department? Okay. I was working on an SAP project where we were moving all of the accounts payable, accounts receivable, payroll from an old legacy system that they knew that was going to break anytime to SAP. Okay, so what was the goals there? To get out of that old legacy system because they was getting ready to break, right? And every department had different goals as to why they were moving into SAP and what was the outcomes, and it actually streamlined their processes. Okay, what is the requirement? So if you have the goals, you got to break those goals down because those goals can be very high level, and you got to break that down into requirements into your project. This is all leadership skills. This is all where you're sitting down and you're actually putting that project together. What's in scope? What's scope? What's out of scope? What's in scope? As a leader, you got to make sure that your team is not doing something that is not part of the project, and you got to kind of bring them back in and say, hey, that's out of scope for right now. This is what we're supposed to be doing in scope, and then kind of align them to what exactly the project is doing. Expectations, internal and external, especially those external ones, dealing with the stakeholders. You have to manage those expectations because they are always different. I can tell you, being in meetings where you can talk about that same expectation, you can say, hey, that's not part of this project, we can't do it right now, and this is why. And then the next meeting they'll say the same thing and ask the same question, right? And then understanding that, okay, I have to manage their expectations because their expectation may not line up to the why, to the goals, to the requirements, to the scope. Okay. And then this is the most important piece: project decisions and project direction. You are there to make those important decisions. Okay. I could tell you right now, if you're not there and you're in you're too high level and people are looking for you to make project decisions, you're nowhere to be found. That is not a good thing. Okay. So as leaders, you need to make sure you're there to make those important decisions and also direct the project direction on where the project is going. Okay. Because sometimes I always tell people I've never been on a project that did not have no issues. So there is no such thing as a perfect project. All projects have problems, okay? But it's up to the leader to understand those projects. Or just understand those needs and those problems and those challenges and bring the project back to where it needs to be, okay? Next slide. Also, they need to understand what resources need to be on the project. Do we have the right resources? If you have employees, we talked a little bit about that poll. If you have employees, do you have the right resources, or do you need to bring in contractors or subcontractors to help fill those gaps? Risk. One of the biggest thing, I think the risk was COVID-19. No one saw it coming. So that was one of those unknown risks. And I'm sure that every project manager was like, okay, what do we have to do now? Where does our project go from here? Okay. Budget. Is there a certain amount of budget that or money that we really have to that we got to stay within budget? You know, is there any wiggle room? You know, can we bring in more money? So you have to understand that timeline. This is really goes back to also, you know, expectation. I want it done in 2 weeks. Well, that's not going to happen. And you got to be able to communicate that, right? And not be so scared, be like, well, I can't tell the stakeholder that we can't do it in 2 weeks, but you have to. Going back to the communication piece and going back to what Roxanne said about communication, you have to communicate the truth to all of those different types of people. You have stakeholders, you got, you know, department heads, then you got the team, you got the project team that they're trying to motivate and keep going. Communication is the #1 reason why project fails. And as a leader, you have to communicate. You're communicating 90% of the time on your project. And then how do you do that, right? Or Roxanne gave some examples of how it's not just about, you know, talking, and it's about listening. But how do you communicate the same message to a stakeholder, composed to a project director, maybe an investor, and then your project team? How do you communicate the same message? Make sure they go in the same direction. It is hard. Sometimes we have to sit back as project managers and really think about what we're doing and how we set up communication in our projects so that we all are moving in the same direction. Okay. Next slide, please.
Cirilla, we have a good question that ties in with this right now. You can maybe answer. Says Andy asked, how do you bridge the gap between expectations versus delivery without laying down hard rules?
Okay, this is going back to the start of the project. So what did Roxanne say? How you start is how you end, or I just paraphrase it, but you have to understand the expectations up front. Okay, so I'm actually starting a project right now. And one of the things I said, because this is actually a big project, you got to meet with everybody, every specific group that has an investment in this project. We got to understand their expectations, right? We have to understand the expectations. We have to go over the expectations with that particular group and say, okay, well, you have 5 expectations. 3 of these relates to the project, the other 2 don't, and explain why and document it. Because I guarantee you that they will ask again, right? So it's going back, it's setting that foundation as a leader to understand that everybody's going to have different expectations, and you got to get them all in line. Roxanne, do you have something to say on that?
Yeah, I was gonna say, there of course has to be hard rules. This is, you're developing something. If it's for your contractor, you're developing a thing that you said you can do and that you can do well. Of course you have to have hard, fast rules, but part of your planning for that project is going to include, what if something goes wrong? You can't at any point enter a project and assume nothing is ever going to go wrong and then hold everybody else accountable except yourself. You have to, when you're planning, if something goes wrong, because Cirilla said earlier, there's not one project where something doesn't go wrong. You have to have that, whatever you want to call it, that cushion, that time, that extra something. So when you've promised a timeline and you tried to, you know, show up the next bidder or whatever it was, and so you came in at a shorter timeline and shorter money, you may have shortchanged yourself. And so if you overpromised and can't deliver, part of that was that leadership decision that you made going in.
Yeah. And someone mentioned in the chat about project charter. The project charter does not necessarily have expectations, right? They're usually not in it. It has requirement, goals, you know, cost, all that stuff. You have to put in that expectation category and capture everybody's expectation, and you know, and say, hey, we got 5 expectations, 3 of them align, 2 of them don't. Here's why, and you can refer people back to that document, right? But that doesn't necessarily mean that some other expectations as you're going through the project may pop up. And you're going to have to, again, deal with those, document those, and just kind of keep repeating yourself. Okay. So getting back to the next one, thank you for all those questions, and thank you, Roxanne, for jumping in as well. The next one, to be an effective project manager, you need management skills. So let's talk a little bit about management skills. Okay, so Roxanne talks about, she did talk about, micromanagement, right? So again, you got to be careful, like she said, about being a micromanager. And everybody has to learn, right? Because I bet you, if you talk to one of us, certain things we'll say, we're going to micromanage this. And it's just because, sometimes you're like, I have to make sure this is right, right? But we're all trying to do better, be better, and be successful. So when we're talking about management skills, we're also talking about planning and managing the project plan. I always have the saying, a to-do list is not a project plan. It's not. So if you have a to-do list and you're trying to do a project plan, it's not a project plan. A to-do list is something that's personal to you, like managing your calendar, with to-do things. You can have personal, you can have work, you could have family things on that. That's a to-do list. A project plan is a full project plan that's taking into account all of the goals, requirements, costs, timeline, and it is written out with all the tasks, and we all are moving towards the project plan. And I always ask when projects get into trouble, first thing I say, what's your project plan? If you don't have one, that's your biggest problem right there. So when we're talking about management skills, number one, project plan, managing it and planning it. Another one, updated documentation. If you're having meetings and you're getting information coming in, all your documentation got to be updated. Okay. Reports, metrics. What are we reporting on? Right? How do we know our project is actually going the way it should? Metrics, reporting, setting that up front. So we're not sitting here in the middle of the project trying to figure out, okay, what are we going to report on? Well, that should have already been, discussed in the planning piece of it. Communication. Communication is not just for leaders, it's for those managing. Okay. Internal and external, because most likely the management piece of it, you're dealing with subcontractors or contractors or vendors or suppliers, right? So those are the external piece of it, but you still have to communicate as well. Managing resources. That's a lot of time, looking at the tasks and understanding where the resources are, what are they doing? Do they need training? Do I need to bring somebody in to help, right? Understanding where the gaps are in resources, right? And it's okay to say, hey, as a person who worked on projects and a project man, I don't understand this. I don't know how to do this. Can you provide me some training? You have to kind of speak up. And as a leader, you need to watch and ask questions, to the people on your team to see where they're at, to see how you can help them. Resolving project issues, big one, right? If there's let's say you have something coming in, a supply, and it doesn't come in, well, what do we do? I guess I have put two resolving project issues, but managing procurement as well. So all of the people that you bring in, those are the management skills piece of it. That, when you're on a project, these are the things you have to do. So to be an effective project manager, you need both leadership and management skills. The key is balance. Okay. So I don't know if you've ever been on a project when these two are out of balance, and let me tell you, it's no fun. Okay. So you could be a leader and be so high, in like high level, that you can't make project decisions. Everybody trying to find you, and you know where to be found. Okay, to make the project decision on where it needs to go. Or you could be so far and deep into managing the project that you're not paying attention to the stakeholders, right? The stakeholders like, hey, you know, we got to get this thing, or maybe like I have this happen to me. We forgot a stakeholder, another department that was critical, and we forgot to bring in that particular person in, right? So we're not watching the project itself, because we're so deep into the project plan and the details and all of this stuff that we're not watching everything else. So the key is balance. You have to have both leadership skills and management skills, but they have to be balanced out. And that's really hard, especially if you're the project manager and you're doing both, right? You know, my ideal situation is to have someone help out with the management skills, especially if you're on a big project, because you can spend all day doing management skills and you like completely forgot that, hey, I got a meeting with the stakeholders and I don't even know what I'm going to do about it, right? So, you know, we always try to bring in maybe a project analyst or a project admin, but I don't think necessarily you can get rid of being the leader, because you are the project manager. So you're the leader. So, you know, think about all that we said as far as leadership, management, and how it affects your projects that you're leading. Not just your projects for your business, but also personally as well. And I'm going to leave it there. I'm going to hand it back over to Robert.
All right, thank you, Roxanne and Srila. All right, so we have a question from Brandon. It says, can you explain the concept of creating buy-in with your teammates and a few examples of using this positively for others?
And as in buy-in, you mean here's the project, here's the idea, I want everybody on board?
That's what I'm guessing he's meaning.
Okay, well, if they're there, that's half the battle. But when you're trying to explain to someone the importance of a project and you want their and you need their buy-in, then you just have to present to them Sorelia was talking about the why behind it. This is why we're doing it this way. This is why, you know, this is what I've done to make sure that it can get done right. And you have to take in their input. So one of the things about when we're talking about leadership, and especially in project management, is that when you're expecting certain people to do certain work, they're the experts. And so if you're creating a timeline without the experts that are supposed to tell you this is how long something should take, then you've already created a situation that's not sustainable. So when you want their buy-in, you got to get them in early in the process to make sure that they have a voice. And then the buy-in is pretty much easy from there because they've already told you what's needed for the project.
So that will be part of the planning phase. Mm-hmm. In the planning phase, you bring everybody in. You bring the stakeholders in, you bring the team in, you bring everybody in to get their expertise, their information, their tasks, the timeline. And that's how you're going to figure out if you can meet that 2-month deadline. Right? So get them in. That's why this foundation, the start of the project and the foundation is so important to establish it properly so that you won't have these types of issues when you start implementing.
It's not that you won't have them, but you'll be able to jump that hurdle a little bit easier. Yeah.
Excellent. So we've got another question here from Andy. It says, when you have a little setback and you try to steer back into line, you need more than normal help from the team. How do you help them, I guess, be more engaged and keep up the momentum?
Okay.
And that for me is exactly what we were talking about before. So, we said that there's always going to be a situation where you're going to have an all hands on deck situation. And if you've already created the environment where people respect you, again, it's not about liking, it's about respecting you, your vision, your plan for the company. If you have done everything right, you put what they said into effect, into consideration, you've something out of your control happened and you need all hands on deck, that's going to happen out of respect and dedication to the project. However, if the opposite has already been historically there, whereas you've already built a situation that is unsustainable because there's not trust, there's not respect, there's no real clear vision. The worst is when the goalpost keeps getting moved. So management is about self-reflection a lot of times. It's not about you, but it is about the environment you're creating. And if the environment has already been there where this happens all the time, everything's a fire. Everything can't be a fire. Does that make sense? But if all things being if everything else is already in the plan and everything else is already part of this atmosphere that you've created in a positive way, the help will come because you've asked for it. You can ask for extra help. You can require them to be there, all hands on deck. And if it's a larger company, obviously you're going to have to pay that overtime. If it's a smaller company, then you need to prepare a reason for them to want to help you. Maybe you give comp time, maybe, because it's not just about incentives. It is about the atmosphere that you've created. I know for a fact that everybody who works for me wants to help me. They want to see me succeed as much as I want to see them succeed. And if that's not already created, then you have to start creating that foundation moving forward so that when you need that extra help, it's going to come. Does that make sense?
And I would just say, you ever had a all hands on deck and you don't understand the problem? Why you're there? Because they don't explain what went wrong. They just needed a solution to be implemented. It's about what Roxanne, being honest. Why is there a setback? What is the what happened, right? And then understand, hey, I need help crafting this solution. Can you all help me?
Excellent, thank you. We are getting right at time, so we're going to go ahead and wrap up. So we appreciate everybody's participation. We appreciate the questions that we were able to get to and answer. Again, thank you, Roxanne and Aurelia, for your presentations today. We hope it was beneficial to everybody. We appreciate you being on here with us, and we look forward to seeing you with us next week, next Tuesday's webinar, or future ones when you can make it. Again, thanks for being with us, and we hope you have a great week. And again, I do want to appreciate Roxanne and Aurelia for giving back of their time and their expertise today. So with that, we will go ahead and wrap up. Everybody have a good day, be safe, and enjoy the rest of your week. Bye.